Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to Swift Slots. Now, as you saw from the thumbnail, the contents of my basket case purchase is this beautiful Team Slot Renault Alpine A110. Now, this was supposed to be part of an unboxing video for a mail call, but there's a bit more to it than that, and I really would like some feedback from you lot to tell me what I should do with it. Now, many years ago, around 2006, I believe, when I was heavily into slot car rally racing previously, I had this exact car, not this one, but the exact same car as this. And I went to a lot of trouble. I remember it multiple times, going back to the bench 3 or 4 or 5 times to give it an overhaul, to make it competitive as a rally car. Eventually, in its day, I did manage to get it to work reasonably well, and I had a little bit of success with it. And then eventually I sold it with all my other collection and life moves on. But I really wanted that car back. There are only a few cars from my original collection that I've wanted back, and this was the last one to find. And it has taken me quite a while to find this exact car in the colour with all the lights and everything else. So I did eventually find it from one of my sellers that I use regularly. I'm not going to tell you the seller that I bought this from, because this car is in horrible condition and it's nothing to do with the seller, because this car is original. So the seller purely passed it on. He's completely without fault. The car is what the car is because it is what it is, and the seller is absolutely fine. But I want to take you through this car and show you the problems that I've got with it as a car. And then I want to ask you the question whether I should do something with it to make it better, or whether I should just leave it as a time capsule, because like I said, it hasn't been touched and it's exactly as it came from the factory many years ago. So I had mine in 2006, so I'm not sure when this one came out, but they are pretty old. So I'll get you on my bench and I'll show you all about this car, and at the end of it you can tell me in the comments below whether you think I should leave it as it is and just enjoy it visually, or whether I should tickle it and try and make it go at least nicely. And here it is, my beautiful Team Slot Renault Alpine A110, complete with original box and everything. But let's get it out the box and I shall show you around the car. And there it is, absolutely stunning looking car, beautiful colour and really nicely modelled and detailed and looking absolutely fantastic. Like I say, I had mine in 2006, so I have no idea how old this particular model is in my hand, but it's got to be well over 20 years old, I'm sure. So there it is. It does have a few problems though, like I've alluded to. So let's get the body off and I'll show you what those are. So while the body's off and in my hand, I'll show you that. So we've got a solid plastic flat tray. It's not a Lexan one or anything like that, which makes the body moderately heavy. Although it's a very low slung car, it's still got a decent amount of weight above the centre wheel line, which won't help handling by modern standards. But I'm not going to change any of that because it is what it is. It's a lovely looking car, and I don't know if I want to do any or too much work to this car, and I certainly don't want to change the body. But it's a beautiful looking body, very nicely detailed inside, and it is what it is. It's just a nice thing. So the problems lie in the chassis. So the first thing to look at is this wobbly front axle, which is no good by modern standards, and that's obviously caused by having slots in the front here. Well, that's easy enough to solve. I can drill out those slots into a hole and I can pop in a bearing, and that will solve that. The other thing to note on this chassis is how crude the end float is controlled on this chassis. You've got a flat piece of plastic here and a flat piece of plastic here, and it's literally cut with a pair of pliers. And if you look at this under a magnifying glass, you can actually see the chamfer on the end where the pliers have just cut it, which is a bit crude. But I'm sure we can do something better than that if I was to change the front axle wheels and put some bearings in there. The actual guide itself isn't too bad. It's a little tiny bit stiff, so it doesn't really self-center, but it's not tight. It's just too stiff to return back to center. But it's pretty good in there. It's there's no wobble in there or anything like that. So you just want a slight ream on this tube just to free that up if you wanted it to self-line, but that's fine. So there's not a lot needing to be done with that front guide. All the problems come from the back end. So the first thing to note is how tight this gear is. There's some really nasty tight spots in this gear. I don't know if you can sense that, but there's one there, really nasty tight spots in that gear. You could probably fiddle with it or lap the gears in, but there's no backlash whatsoever in that gear, which would imply to me that that gear mesh is just too tight all the way around. So you're better off really just replacing the gear for a higher quality one. Then obviously you'd have to change the back axle as well, and the bearings would have to go, because this axle is actually 2.44 mil in diameter, so it's quite a long way away from the 2.38. So you'd have to change the back axle, back bearings and the gear. And then the biggest offender of this car are the wheels. Now I just want to show you this. If I take that tyre off there, I'm hoping you can see this, but there's an amount of plastic here, and whatever that is, it's about half on this side here. Now if I rotate that wheel by hand, hopefully you'll see just how off center that wheel actually is. It is unbelievably bad. So just to show you what I'm dealing with, if I put some power to it, you can actually see how bad it actually is. And you can tell it's so bad that when you put the tyre on, you can't actually get the tyre to seat against the rim of the wheel where the rib is holding the tyre on. As you can see, look, it's just, there's a big gap here and it's tight on this side here. So that wheel is completely and utterly off centre. All the other wheels are not great, but they're not as bad as that other one. As you can see here, you've still got the problem of the wheel rim showing through, or the bead in the middle showing through. So this one is completely off centre, and I expect the front ones are probably much the same. There's no reason to assume that they're not as bad. It's difficult to tell because they're so wobbly on the axles, it's hard to tell really. So that would need to be done. We'd need to change the back wheels, change the bearings, change the axle and change the rear gear, and this car then would have quite a nice running back end. Now with regards to the wheels, we do actually have a solution for the wheels. So Staff Slots sell these alloy wheels at 15.8 by 8.5 mil wide, and they are actually 100% perfect replacement for the original kit wheel on this Renault. The rims are exactly the same diameter, and the width of the bead to hold the tyre on is identical, and so is the height. And the tyre, the original tyre, fits the Staff Slots wheel 100% perfectly. So these would be an absolutely brilliant replacement alloy wheel for these standard Renault wheels, and then I could just machine out that centre and put that centre into this wheel and you get exactly the same look. I could even spray the edge of this wheel in a silver paint rather than having it shiny if I wanted to maintain that silver finish. So that would be a really easy way to fix this entire back end. Wheels, bearings, axle and a new slotted gear, and that will get this car running really smoothly. A little bit of weight in there would improve the performance as well. So that's the question. Do I take this 20-odd-year-old Survivor and leave it exactly as it is and enjoy it for what it is? Or do I run it down Crow Valley, watch it bounce all over the place and put in a horrible lap, and then do a little bit of light tuning on it and a little bit of light improvements, and then rerun it and see if I can actually get it to put in a respectable lap worthy of its looks? So there it is, my Renault Alpine A110, warts and all. And as I said at the beginning of the video, leave a comment below and tell me what you think I should do with this car. Should I run it round Crow Valley and set a time and then give it a little bit of love and see if I can improve the time? Or should I just leave it as a lovely looking car so that I can just visually admire it? So, if you've enjoyed this sort of content, maybe you'll subscribe. And if you could hit the little bell button, that would be awesome. So until the next time, thank you very much.